here with me now somebody by the name Josh Mandel. He is the treasurer of the state of Ohio. He's 34, pretty young. He's Jewish too, so he's a Republican of all things, and he's one of the strong candidates, the Republican side, to run against Brown later in the general election. Good evening, Josh.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let me ask you, how is it that somebody of your background would go to the Republican Party? Usually, when you see somebody in the Jewish community rising in politics, it goes with the Democrats. And may I add, you had a strong success when you ran for the statewide election because you won more votes than any other statewide seat holder by the last election. So you obviously did something good. And so I'm wondering how did you get to the Republican Party, and how did you get to such a success when you ran last time?
Well, I think the economic principles of the conservative side make sense for growing the economy in America. The notion that families and businesses should keep more of their hard-earned money than the government makes a lot of sense to me. In addition to that, I think that on the national security side, the folks who on the right have a lot more clarity and better positions when it comes to who are our friends and who are our enemies throughout the world. And it's important that we treat our friends and we treat our enemies accordingly as they are. As far as the past elections in Ohio, we've been able to put together this great mix of Democrats, Republicans, and independents who believe in free markets, who believe in the importance of the private sector driving the economy, and who believe in the Constitution and believe in peace through strength. And I've been blessed to have the support of Democrats, Republicans, and independents throughout the past, and hopefully continuing into the future.
Speaking about finances, I read today, or I think it was a few days ago, I read a report that Ohio actually bought the most bonds from the state of Israel under your watch than in any previous year. And also, I wasn't exactly sure if I got that. The Ohio pension system has bonds from an Iranian bank?
Well, there's a few different issues there. The latter one, when I was in the legislature, I led the charge to stop our pension funds from investing in foreign companies that were drilling oil in Iran at the same time that Iran was funding roadside bombs against American troops in Iraq. And we thought it was financially risky and morally wrong to be taking the hard-working retirement dollars of cops and firefighters and teachers and other employees throughout the state of Ohio, investing it in a country that was killing American men and women wearing our uniform overseas.
But don't we have sanctions? What type of bonds did the state of Ohio buy?
Well, again, it's two different issues. The bonds were investments on the state of Israel bonds for investments on the state side, whereas the Iran portion was actually the pension funds investing in foreign companies that were drilling oil in Iran, and then Iran is taking the oil proceeds and other money to fund roadside bombs against troops in Iraq. So there's two different issues.
I understand. Speaking of two different issues, one of the issue two, as it is known, was the issue regarding the unions, and it was strongly defeated a few weeks ago in Ohio. What went wrong over there for the Republican agenda or point of view in terms of putting some limits as to how unions bargain with the states and local governments? How come the Republicans lost this battle and so strongly?
Well, I think the voters obviously did not like the way the language that was passed. And I think the voters, the people of Ohio, they want the state to be more, fiscally conservative, but they want it, done in a way that, in concert with with their, with the way they want the state going. And so the interesting thing about that day, that election day, is while the issue 2, the collective bargaining reform, lost 39 to 61, the voters also had on issue 3 passed an amendment to the Ohio Constitution, which is not something they do often. This is a big deal to amend the Ohio Constitution. They passed an amendment by 66%, so a higher percentage than the other one actually failed, to say that they don't want individual health insurance mandates in the state of Ohio. Essentially, it was a ban on the implementation of Obamacare.
Yeah, but that's not binding. Whereas the issue with the unions, issue 2, is binding. So I think it's different. So so I'm wondering. Now, of course, obviously, people they don't want to be forced by government to tell me what to buy. And people always make the stupid comparison between buying a healthcare to buying a car insurance. Car insurance, you don't need to drive a car, and you don't need to have insurance. You need only liability insurance, not full coverage. You have the right to drive your car, $50,000 without full coverage, and you screw it up, it's lost. Nobody forces you to buy full coverage. This is the difference between health and car insurance. But was there a issue or a problem with the issue in general, or was it just was it not sold, if you will, the correct way to the Ohioans, and therefore it was defeated? What was the issue, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's tough to nail it down to one thing. I think obviously you have millions of people come out and vote, and so different people come to the polls and make decisions based on a variety of issues. But obviously overall, a majority disagreed with it, and that's used as a lesson learned. And I think the important thing is to take it with understanding and take it with humility. I know that folks throughout the state are taking it in that way, and it's always important to listen to the people. That's what's most important, that you listen to the people's will. I will say, going back to the government's takeover of healthcare, that I think the American people and the people of Ohio in concert do not want a faceless bureaucrat in between them and their doctor when they're making very personal decisions for their health care. The government's takeover of health care is unpopular throughout America, and it's unpopular here in the state of Ohio. And I'm hopeful next summer that the Supreme Court, including Justice Kennedy, rules and finds it unconstitutional, so that individual citizens can make their decisions for their health care, not a faceless bureaucrat in Washington.
Okay, and then go to the next question. Now that basically the previous elections, the referendums were obviously a mixed bag, healthcare versus the other issue, but with these results, what do you think the future holds for the elections in 2012, the general election? I'm not speaking about necessarily your primary now in March. I'm speaking about the general election, with the Senate seat being up and such an important swing state for the presidential election, but you have these results, coming off these results, and the unions are certainly empowered, but then again, I think Republicans, have the healthcare issue to show. Where do you think this leaves the Republicans, the Democrats, Ohio in general, in a year from now?
Well, I think it's a great question, and I think, like most presidential years, Ohio is going to be a very strong swing state, and the Senate race in which I'm running will be a very competitive race. I'm confident we're going to win, but it's going to be very competitive. And the presidential race will be competitive. As you probably know, no Republican has ever won the White House without winning the state of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think, folks on both sides of the aisle, will, talk about what happened, about a month ago in the ballot initiatives as far as the, strengths for their own side. But the reality is next year is a federal election, and the Obamacare is a federal issue. The fact that there were hundreds of thousands of union members, Democrats, and independents, if not over 1 million, who came out and voted for collective bargaining and against Obamacare is a very strong message, and I think one that bodes in favor of folks like me who are opposed to Obamacare and who are running against people who embraced it and championed it.
All right. I guess it's going to depend who's going to have a stronger, a louder megaphone, if you will, to put focus on the healthcare issues versus jobs versus maybe people who consider it overreach. I guess the jury is still out on that. The Jewish vote in Ohio, put it this way, Ohio has more than 11 million people, if I have it correctly. The Jewish community over there is like 150,000, that's like 1.3 something percent. And actual registered voters are obviously less, and in actual votes it's obviously even less. Somebody like you, I'm asking this from 2 points. First of all, as being yourself as a Jewish politician, if you will, and also as somebody who is looking to win a swing state, and a swing means you can win or lose a state by 500 votes. Just look at Florida in 2000. How do you view or assess the Jewish relevance in the election in Ohio next year? And more importantly, how do you have any reach out to them? How important is it? Give me some background if you can make it fast, because it's getting late for us.
Sure. Well, I think there's a lot of Obama buyer's remorse in the Jewish community, and in really all communities, across the board. And in our campaign, we're running against a person who treats businesses and entrepreneurs as if they're guilty until proven innocent. And he's really advocated for a lot of policies that have poked his finger in the eye and really spit in the face of folks who are job creators and entrepreneurs, of which there's obviously a good point in this community. On top of that, he has an atrocious record when it comes to the U.S.-Israel relationship. He's voted against aid for Israel 5 times. He actually voted to cut aid for Israel when he was in Congress. And on top of that, in a time in the Senate recently, he's refused to sign numerous letters. And these are letters that are bipartisan letters in support of the U.S.-Israel relationship. These are
but sir, I'm sure you read the polls in New York Times, for example, and that is a strongly Orthodox Hasidic community, and in percentage way stronger than Ohio. If you ask people what was the most important issue for you, if people had the option to choose one issue, only 7% in a poll, I think done by Greenberg, forgot his name now, said Israel. If you put together all economic issues were 60%. Now, of course, everybody was busy with the poll saying that the 38% said Israel is a very important issue, but that was it wasn't a multi-choice. You had an option to say it on a few issues, but when you got a chance to say only one, only 7% said Israel is the most important. So I see where Sherrod Brown's record on Israel is, destructive or against the Jewish community. I get that. But with economic stuff playing probably a way stronger role, how would you reach out to the Jewish community? How would you reach them? On what basis? On what records?
Well, Yossi, that's why I started off first and foremost with talking about his impact on in the business community and on entrepreneurs and jobs creators and the jobs in general. And I said that first because that's the focus of our campaign, is jobs and the economy. During Sherrod Brown's past decade as a D.C. politician, Ohio has lost about 600,000 jobs. During Sherrod Brown's past decade as a D.C. politician, 1 out of every 4 jobs that has left America left from Ohio. And Sherrod Brown is responsible for the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs. His policies have pushed those jobs out of the state of Ohio. Come next year, he's going to have to stand on that record. And, we believe that record speaks for itself, that the policies for which he's advocated are bad for all communities, people of all races, religions, political affiliations, because they forced jobs out of the state of Ohio and out of America. Frankly, the policies Schmidt has advocated for since his time in public service has been policies that have pushed jobs out of Ohio and out of America. This Sherrod Brown, he's been running for public office since Richard Nixon was president. He's been in Washington for 2 decades, and if he was the answer, I think the problem would have been solved long ago.
All right. Okay, I'll let you go with one a short question and a short answer, and we'll close this interview. Based on polling, organization, money, and so forth, how confident are you in winning the primary in March, which is just a few months down the road?
Well, we're in a unique position where we do not have a competitive primary. A couple of the gentlemen who would have been very strong competitors decided not to run, and so we're in a unique position where we do not have a competitive primary, and so we have about 1 full year, a little less now, where we'll be able to focus on Sherrod Brown and painting the contrast between his failed policy